There's a lot of hierarchy in fashion and a lot of toxicity in it, and it put me in the mentality that when I grew in my career, I wasn't always reflecting on my actions and how they affected other people. And this mindset of ambition, I think, can really lead you to, lack values. And so I think that, and it's something that I've definitely been guilty of. So I think that having these conversations should be normalized in not only fashion, but a lot of industries of, at the end of the day, relationships and people are what matters. It's not success. All of that will come naturally if you treat people right. And that's something that I wish people had told me more throughout my career, rather than being so focused on ambition and success, because I think that can also cause a lot of harm. So that's something that's really important to me now and in my career growth, is being really intentional to recognize, how am I always bringing people up and not ever putting people down?
Welcome back to Have a Map, where we talk all things career, get direction from fabulous guests that we have from all across the country. I will say that is one of the benefits of COVID. I'm not saying COVID is a great thing, but what I am saying is you're able to talk to people from all around the country instead of waiting for them to come to Chicago. So super excited about that. But before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host, someone who we connected in her interview, and we were talking about Insecure and talk about our favorite episodes and talk about characters. So I was like, oh yeah, Jordan, this is lit. It's great. So let's start with Jordan. Can you introduce yourself? Say what's up to everybody.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan Denny. I'm a rising senior studying strategic communication at the University of Missouri, and I'm a public relations intern here at Denny Events.
Perfect. And turning it over to the person we're taking directions from today, skirt, Merel. Can you say what's up? Merel is actually my beautiful girlfriend, and I'm so excited to have her on the podcast today. So Merel, introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everyone. I'm Merel. I am a communications specialist in New York City, and I have been living here for about 5 years, and I'm very excited to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Love that. Let's talk a little bit about your history, Merel.
Yeah, if you just want to tell us about your history, what was your path, after high school like, and, how did that lead you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I think in high school, I was really interested in fashion, honestly, for as long as I can remember. And I think now that I'm older and can reflect on it, it's because I conflated fashion and creativity. It was such a different time with social media was not really a thing, and the only outlets I saw for creativity were through magazines. So I really found this love of magazines and fashion and creation. So when I went to college, I was really looking for a school with some type of fashion program. To me, it seemed like the only thing I was actually interested in at the time, which has changed a lot over the years. So I initially was looking at going to NYU. Obviously, fashion and New York go hand in hand. But at the time, I was just not ready. I came and visited. I was really overwhelmed by the city. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and just was still craving that true college campus feeling. So I actually thought I was going to go to UT in Austin to major in textile design, and was committed, about to go, and a month before school started, I just had a revelation. I woke up and I was like, I don't want to go there. All my friends are excited about college and I am dreading it. Something's off. So I ended up going to Indiana University, which was completely unexpected. I didn't I think it's the only Midwest school I applied to because I wanted out of the Midwest so badly and ended up there. So I went to Indiana, and they actually were launching a fashion design program the first year I was there. So I initially enrolled as doing fashion merchandising and business, and then I was in my first class, and my teacher, the professor there, Deb Christensen, is truly an angel, and she came in and spoke and offered this design program, basically offering it to anyone of any skill level. And I was always really interested in design. I had dabbled with sewing in high school, and I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's try it. So then I ended up double majoring in merchandising and design. And then fast forward, after I graduated, I was really looking for a fashion role that wasn't in design, honestly. I had interned between my junior and senior year for a company called Victor and Rolf, doing mostly wholesale. And Indiana, the programming was really targeted through, if it wasn't design, the other career path presented was buying and merchandising. And I really wasn't into that either. So I was still seeking and trying to find my footing of, okay, what aspect of fashion do I fit into? And again, there wasn't that awareness of all these other careers, like stylists or editors, or all of these elusive jobs that seemed very unrealistic when I had never met or spoken to anyone that had them. So I got a job with Michael Kors doing wholesale out of college, came to New York, knew from the get-go that the job wasn't something I wanted to do long-term, but it was my ticket to New York, and did that for a couple months until a friend of mine connected me with a role. So she was working actually for Modern Luxury, which is a magazine in Chicago, and she connected me with the New York office because I really wanted to try editorial. I thought I wanted to be a stylist. I thought that could kind of bridge the idea of business and design. So I started interning for them, and it turned into something a bit more freelance, to the point where I could quit my job at Michael Kors, take on working part-time at Modern Luxury, and I picked up another internship at a small fashion brand. Well, they're not very small anymore, but at the time they were just starting to be. And so I got a lot of experience on both sides. I got to see a brand side, I got to see the editorial side, and eventually Modern Luxury turned into a full-time role. And I worked there for about 2 years, initially more in the marketing department, and then transitioned to work with the team on fashion shoots in the editorial department, what I really wanted to do. So that was first.
So real quick, let's break down this, right? Because I always want to track where we're going with everything, right? You started off wanting to do fashion, well, interested in fashion, right? Tried it out in college, realized that, you know, to get to your dream city, New York, you had to kind of pivot a different direction, right?
Yeah.
What happened during that time of like going from making your own clothes and pivoting to the wholesale side, right? Like, what was that decision, or why did you kind of make that decision to pivot there?
It was really opportunity. I mean, I had no connections in New York. Even my first internship was kind of a fluke how I got it. And that was in wholesale. And at the time, it was fashion felt really structured, as if you have to choose one certain path and stick to it. So it definitely made me worried about pigeonholing myself into design, when I really liked design and I liked what I was doing, but I knew that I'm not super technical in design. I really like the draping and the creativity and the styling aspects of design, but I knew that a true design entry-level role, because I had friends that were a bit older than me or had already started jobs or interned in the design space, I knew how technical and, you know, meticulous it was, and I knew that it wasn't the path I wanted to go down. So kind of like I said, at Indiana, we weren't really taught about other options. It was either, design or this wholesale merchandising sales side of the business. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try that and see where it takes me.
That's fascinating. And then a lot of what I'm hearing is like a constant pivot, right? Like adjusting here, and really kind of just stepping out on faith and saying like, hey, you know what? This is what I thought I was interested in. I'm actually not interested in it. And then now I'm going to work part-time or intern and work part-time, right? So a lot of people would say, oh, but you're taking a step backwards, right? But what did you look at those opportunities like?
Oh, I mean, financially and through a traditional path was taking a huge step back. I really had to drown out the noise of everyone around me in a way that was definitely challenging, but I had two roommates at the time who were both working at Macy's and, were on the path to a traditional successful career. And I came in Michael Kors is not too dissimilar from Macy's in the corporate environment that, it starts with training and then you climb up the ladder, and by all means, it was a pretty solid salary out of college, and it on paper seemed like a good first opportunity, but I have a very, maybe to a fault, an antsy personality where if I start doing something, I know pretty quickly whether it's right or wrong for me. And I remember when I was, a couple weeks into Michael Kors and I came home and I called my mom and I was like, this isn't it. I can't keep doing this. And every single person around me was like, stay a year, put your head down, put in the work, and then figure out what you're going to do. And to me, I was like, why would I stay a year? I have I just still don't know what I want to do next, but I know that not trying other things won't make that any more clear. So I left Michael Kors, and after maybe 2 months, it was pretty quick, and just took the leap to say, there seems like there's a lot more opportunity of this unknown world of the editorial and, a small emerging designer at the time to learn from.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. So let's move forward into your journey, right? Where, after you started working at Modern Luxury full time, right? What was that experience like? What was the next step for you after that?
It was really cool. I was so grateful to get the experience on the editorial side. I wasn't hired for that. I was hired on the more sales and marketing side. It's funny because I kept being pigeonholed into these sales roles, and I kept knowing that sales wasn't right for me. But I made a friend on the editorial side. It was a tiny team. It was the fashion director, the market editor, and the fashion assistant. And I kept walking by the fashion assistant, and he just had really good energy. And I can't really, it sounds so crazy. He's actually one of my best friends now, but I just kept walking by him and I was like, I need to talk to this guy. So one day I finally got the nerve to talk to him because I was, shy and intimidated because they were the cool fashion team. So I struck up conversation with him. We built a relationship, and eventually I was just always kind of hanging around the division, and I would stay late. I would come early just to play with, they had all the clothes for the shoots, or they were mood boarding, and I would just hang around and give my unsolicited opinion. And eventually that turned into building a relationship with the fashion director and market editor and telling them, I want to try this. I want to help. I want to understand what you guys do. And we basically worked out a plan where I was working 3 days a week on my true job on the sales and marketing side and 2 days a week on the editorial side. And in doing the editorial side, it felt way more natural. It definitely felt like a step in the right direction. But at the same time, I knew there wasn't much room for opportunity. It was a tiny team. No one was going anywhere at the time. So I knew that my only next move was either to move on to a different magazine or assist a stylist. I interviewed for a couple stylist assistant positions, or go to the PR side, which I knew nothing about. But through the experience with editorial, I was emailing all these PR people. So I started to understand, okay, so what do they do on the other side of it? It still seems in the same realm of my interest. And I was getting more and more involved into the team, and someone else on the actual sales and marketing side of Modern Luxury was like, I have a friend who works for an agency called HL Group. They're looking for an account coordinator on the PR side. Would you want to make the jump? And I interviewed and ended up taking the job.
And with that interview, right, or with that jump, right, because I think that there's a few things in there that you talked about that are super important to pull from. One is you didn't let your circumstances box you in, right? You said, you know what, I'm doing this sales and marketing role. I don't really want to do this. Let me see if I can just give this free advice, try these things out, hang out with these people, and show them that I'm really interested, right? I'll work double, I might work triple, right? But this is what I really want to do. And by doing that and having that very uncomfortable conversation that could, in some spaces, people might think could get you fired, right? Was something that you did, right? And you tried it. And then building these relationships in the office actually got you this next role, right? That next opportunity. So how did you navigate? How did you use that next role to kind of get to where you are now?
Yeah, so that next role was really, I kind of call it PR boot camp. I was only there for 8 months, and actually the fashion director at Modern Luxury was the same person to put me in touch for my next role, which was to do PR at Christian Louboutin. So he connected me with their VP of communications at the time because they were friends. And I met with her. We completely hit it off. She, to this day, is just one of the people I have the highest regard for. And so again, it was, you know, every opportunity along the way has come through a past connection. And yeah, I think that the time at the agency was also really pivotal because I didn't know anything about PR besides the little snippets I had from the editorial side. So I really needed that to, an agency life is very intense in the sense that I was working with 7 different brands. It was during fashion week. There were weeks on end where I was working at the office till 1 or 2 a.m. So it really was that boot camp, and it prepared me to kind of see so many facets of PR that I then felt confident and comfortable to make the jump in-house for a major brand and that I could be successful.
And just to clarify, in college, you took no PR courses, didn't understand PR back then. So this is just like, I'm trying stuff out, right?
Yeah. All I knew was I really liked fashion. I cared about it. And I really liked talking to people. And I've always been pretty good at connecting with people. And once I put those pieces together, that I was like, all PR is building relationships and communicating something clearly to people you have relationships with so that they listen. And I've always been, you know, that person in my friend group or family to be the person where if I'm talking about something I like or a trend, I became that go-to person that people would ask, okay, what are your thoughts about this? And I think that's so much of what PR is forming these educated opinions and then spreading them to others.
I feel like that's so fascinating, right? I think a lot of people think that, you know, you can't get a job in a different industry without, you know, really having a background, a very strong background. And I think that that's where, like, you just putting in the work and trying something can actually help you to get to that next level. But then on top of that, your network, right? Making sure that you put in work somewhere else and now someone's vouched for you at this other position. So let's talk a little bit about Christian Louboutin, or, you know, everybody in these rap songs know Red Bottoms, if you don't know the full name for it. But what were and actually, before we go there, what were some of the cool projects that you might have worked on at Christian Louboutin? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I was at Louboutin when Cardi dropped Bodak Yellow, which was pretty iconic. And I think Louboutin was by all means a dream job, both on paper and in the moment. It was so much, I was still so young and so fresh to the industry. And so much of my role was, again, building relationships with my peers. So editorial assistants, stylist assistants, for stylists that were dressing celebrities on the red carpet. So a lot of my role was making sure that those people got what they needed to get our products on the feet of celebrities in the magazines and always staying relevant in popular culture. So one of the projects that actually was most exciting to me was this was probably a year in, and at my level, I was a coordinator when I was there, so I was still pretty junior on the team, but I was given the opportunity to build out this program launching this lug sole shoe, which Louboutin is obviously known for their sky-high heels, really sexy, and they had already launched men's, but this was their first big menswear style for women. It was a chunky lug sole shoe. I have it in my closet. I'm truly obsessed with it. And ironically, I'm not really a heels girl. I've never really worn heels, but I ended up at Louboutin. And so I was really tasked with building out which celebrities we wanted to place it with and focusing on young emerging talent and, you know, celebrities that weren't on the typical roster that Louboutin was sending to. And that was really exciting to me and because it really bridged my interest in pop culture, movies, music, and combining that with fashion. So I was presenting all of these up and coming, mostly musicians, because I really love music and especially emerging talent. So presenting them to our whole team in Paris and being that point person of these are the people that I think would wear this shoe and expand the reach of Louboutin beyond the perception of just, you know, sky high heels and sexiness, but that it can also be this cool girl shoe that anyone can wear.
That sounds so awesome. Like, I love Louboutin. So we kind of want to know, like, after, you know, your transition to your current role now, how did you get from, you know, this big fashion brand to, you know, the role that you have currently?
Yeah, so my current role, I'm VP of Communications for a direct-to-consumer beverage brand called Iris Nova, where we sell all of our products over text message. And I made that transition because I was really I was at Louboutin for about 2 years. And while I really loved the job, I was really fascinated by these brands, these direct-to-consumer brands that were popping up and all of their potential. So, you know, a lot of the founders were young and just trying things. And I've always been really entrepreneurial minded. At the time, I wasn't in a place where I was ready to make a jump or create something on my own, but my thought process was really, I want to learn every aspect of how a business works. And when I was at Louboutin, one of the things that I really wanted to learn more of, but recognized that it wasn't as realistic, was the why behind everything. And when it's a bigger company and you're in a lower position, sometimes that's challenging to see. So I really wanted to make the jump to a smaller company, get in with a company when they're young, and then just learn every single aspect of it so that I could understand how a business works.
And let's talk a little bit about how you got that role, because I always think that's a fascinating story. You can give us the abbreviated version because I'm sure you've told the story a lot, but I think it shows to like how you can connect with up and coming brands, right? Because it's not the conventional, traditional way that you think you would be able to get a job.
Well, it was definitely unconventional. So like I mentioned, the company at the time started with one brand called Dirty Lemon, which was and still is a brand that's water and lemon based, and then it features all of these functional ingredients. So at the time, the most popular product was with activated charcoal, which was just popping up in New York. This wellness craze was happening from, you know, people doing juice cleanses to being very interested in supplements, and that really spreading. So I was with two friends at Ludlow House for Sunday brunch, and they were both having a drink, and I didn't feel like drinking. So I saw the menu, and there's something on there called Dirty Lemon, and it had activated charcoal in it. And I've always been very interested in nutrition and health and things of that nature. So, and I am a sucker for good marketing. So I tried it, and on the bottle, it said, if you want more, text us. And so I'm sitting at a restaurant. I didn't know anything about the company or the platform at the time, but my friend grabbed the bottle and he's like, let's text them. And I was like, let's not bother the brand with our dumb little escapades. So they text just the word more, and someone responds, which now I recognize is just a real human. It's not a bot or anything like that. And I oversee that whole team, so it's all very ironic now. But someone gets back to me and says, what are you looking for? And I told my friend, I said, tell them a job. She says a job. They respond back saying, what do you do? I said, I'm currently the PR coordinator at Christian Louboutin. They said, okay, send us a resume to this email and let's chat. So I do that. I send over my resume, and the CEO of the company responds within a couple of days to set up a call. And we set up a call. It's a very long process in terms of interviewing, longer than anything I had experienced from more, not only fashion, but just even more corporate worlds of having more of a structure. So even when we were talking and interviewing, it lasted so long that I kept thinking this is never going to happen. But now that I work in a startup, I completely understand the time frame, and I'm much more forgiving to that. So so it turned into an offer.
That's huge. Like, I think that's fascinating, where I was literally just on a call before this, but like, we talked about, like, sometimes it's just DMing a brand and telling them that you're interested in working with them, right? Like, things have changed. Like, you have to be open to doing these new things and really putting yourself out there. And because of that, you've put yourself out there and you've grown to become VP, of communication. So, what does a day in the life look like for you pre-COVID when you were working at Dirty Lemon or Iris Nova, sorry?
Pre-COVID, honestly, my role has evolved so much and continues to, and it's one of those things that, in my desire to learn every aspect of the business, I am, because I came in to do traditional PR, and it didn't seem like such a jump to go from fashion to this buzzy wellness brand, because there was so much overlap that I was still talking to editors, talking to stylists, influencers, trying to get bottles in the right hands. And when I joined, that bigger picture of Iris Nova was presented to me probably within the first couple months. We acquired a tech company a month after I started. And I was like, what is going on? This is not just a beverage brand. And I got to learn through the transition of, working alongside my CEO to launch Iris Nova to the entire world, every aspect that goes into that. So all of the messaging and all the communication was completely collaborative between myself and the CEO to how do we tell the public, okay, we started as this one really cool brand that you can only order by text, to now we're creating this parent company of a portfolio of brands, and how do we communicate that and make it really digestible to understand, while also, catering to customers to explain to them, but also our investors. And other brands to get them to want to join our platform. So it was probably 6 or 8 months of working on that and crafting all the messaging and really fine-tuning what Iris Nova is, what's our bigger vision, which was really exciting. And it also helped me to understand such different worlds of PR. I was in the lifestyle and fashion type of PR, and this was so much more tech and finance and aspects of PR that I never thought I would touch, but I really enjoyed learning about. So that was really the beginning of my career. And then when we expanded to the parent company, the year after that was really establishing Iris Nova as having potential against these big tech companies. And my focus was getting our CEO on a bunch of speaking circuits, making sure that he is positioned as a leader in the industry, while also making sure not to neglect Dirty Lemon as a brand and kind of keeping them separate and still having Dirty Lemon maintain its identity in this larger parent company without them having to be the same thing. And honestly, from then, I've touched everything along the way, from creative and photo shoots and social media to customer relationships and marketing and email and in-store events. There's really no aspect of communications as a whole, which we see as marketing, PR, social, all the above.
That sounds really cool. It definitely sounds like you had a lot going on. So I kind of want to know now, with COVID and everything, what's your day-to-day life, work looking like now, especially since, everything's online, we're virtual. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, for us, it's really going back to the basics and recognizing that we built this incredible platform that is so relevant for the times. People want food and beverage products to their door now more than ever. And rather than focusing on a lot of other aspects of marketing that are great, but when you really get down to a situation like COVID and what's important to make sure that the business is still successful, we've been focusing on customers and customer relationships. So much of my job lately is how can we make sure that our customers feel special and ensure that they want to receive their case of Dirty Lemon or insert whichever of our brands every single month. And what can we do to make them feel good at a time when a lot of people do not feel good?
And speaking of feeling good, I think it's really important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, especially during this pandemic. So what does, self-care look like for you right now?
Self-care for me is I do yoga every day. I need that to feel grounded, and whenever I feel out of control or overwhelmed, it's really connecting to my body in some way. I meditate. That's really important too, to start my day. And this month, actually, I've cut off all social media to just kind of take a step back, which has felt really good. So yeah, I think for me, it's really reflecting and listening to myself. Writing is really therapeutic. I journal or write in some sense mostly every day, at least every other day. And that really helps to ground me and reflect and feel more at ease.
I like that. I'm a journaler too. Kind of one of my things that I want to personally know is, what's some advice that you would have given yourself 5 years ago, just to, the people who are currently not happy in their positions right now and they know they want to, change and get on a different path?
Yeah, I think two things really come to mind. The first is if you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling stuck, I think creating those outlets outside of work are so important because they can lead to motivation that can overlap at work. When I was at Modern Luxury, before I started working with the fashion team, I was taking classes at FIT, a photography class and styling class, just to get that extra creative outlet and learn skills that, you know, I knew I wanted to learn these skills, but I also knew that the job I was in wasn't going to teach me those. So how can I seek those somewhere else? And now I think it's so great. You don't have to go to a school to do that. There's so many resources on YouTube or what is that website? Coursera, that can teach you these things. So I think identifying what skills are lacking in your current role or what you're not being taught and how can you seek to learn those other places, and then that'll naturally kind of push you in different directions. Like if you are doing PR but you really are interested in graphic design, you can take graphic design classes on the side, and that's actually going to strengthen your skills in PR because you're learning how to communicate in a new way. And then I think beyond that, the advice I really would have loved to receive is, you know, I received a lot of advice around networking and the importance of it, but I think something that people don't talk about enough in the fashion industry, and I think this applies to a lot of industries, is putting people first and, you know, not taking that for granted. I think there's a lot of hierarchy in fashion and a lot of toxicity in it, and it put me in the mentality that when I grew in my career, I wasn't always reflecting on my actions and how they affected other people. And this mindset of ambition, I think, can really lead you to, you know, lack values. And so I think that, you know, and it's something that I've definitely been guilty of. So I think that having these conversations should be normalized in not only fashion, but a lot of industries of, you know, at the end of the day, relationships and people are what matters. It's not success. All of that will come naturally if you treat people right. And that's something that I wish people had told me more throughout my career rather than being so focused on ambition and success, because I think that that can also cause a lot of harm. So that's something that's really important to me now and in my career growth, is being really intentional to recognize how am I always bringing people up and not ever putting people down.
Yeah. No,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just wanted to like jump in, you know, you talk about, you know, how relationships and people are important to you. So I just wanted to know, like, how are you managing like that balance between like, you know, your career growth and, you know, your friendships or love life and everything?
Yeah. I think it's been a journey. I would say the last year really has been really transformative of making sure to prioritize the people in my life. Like I said at the beginning, I've always been hyper ambitious and to times a fault, of being so tunnel vision on how can I grow, how can I succeed? And at the end of the day, that's great, but it doesn't mean that it has to come at the expense of the people you love or even the people that are around you. And I think that now, whenever I'm overwhelmed about work or stressed about something that's more career focused, one of the ways self-care is calling that person I haven't talked to in a bit and just listening to them, not talking about my issues, not trying to find an outlet to vent frustrations, but grounding myself in the people that I know care about me, that I care about, and making time for them above everything. Because at the end of the day, I am a strong believer that careers come and go, opportunities come and go, but it's the people in your life that you never want to, you know, risk losing because of a certain momentary perception of success.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that kind of advice, right? I think that's so important because we get so tunnel vision and focusing on like, oh, I need to get to this level, or I need to be at this level, or I need to be at this level when I'm 30, or I need to be making this type of money when I'm this age, right? And I think that's when you're looking at that only, you forget about the people on the left and right of you who actually can be those people who can be some of your cheerleaders or actually help you to get to those spaces, right? Because it's more of like a team mentality. And I think that's something that you see a lot of companies having to remove, that kind of ideology of this is how you grow within our company. You just got to do whatever and push yourself to that space, right? And a lot more people are reflective of that and showing that, hey, team settings are what really help to grow and build the vision of a company. So allowing that type of atmosphere to continue to prosper in your office spaces and your jobs is so important. One thing of advice that I want to ask you for those people who are, transitioning or trying to figure out like what direction they want to go into. Like, you've worked at a large corporation and you've worked at a smaller startup, right? So what are some of the good things and the bad things about those spaces, that maybe you could share? And maybe let's not say good and bad. Let's go with more so what type of person could work at a smaller company and what type of person might fit better at a larger company.
Yeah, well, I think in that either or situation, it's funny, I had this exact conversation with a past intern of mine when she was about to get her first job. And I don't think you can go wrong. I think that everything I've learned, and I always make this comparison, I wouldn't have gotten the job at Dirty Lemon without Louboutin on my resume. But now that I have experience at a place like Dirty Lemon, on LinkedIn, I always get people reaching out from big companies that want to know more about my startup experience. So I think that recognizing first and foremost that if you're, motivated to be a hard worker and learn all that you can, your skill set is actually going to be appealing to the opposite, no matter what. Because if you think about a company, and now that I'm in the beverage space, I'm so hyper aware of this, but a company like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, they look to startups like Dirty Lemon and other smaller beverage brands for innovation. And that's something that no matter how big their teams are or smart their teams are, there are just certain limitations of being a bigger company that you don't operate in the same scrappiness as a small company. And there's a lot of benefits to that. And then on the same end, smaller companies, they want people that have experience with structure, especially if they're just starting out and maybe there aren't people on the team that have ever had that corporate experience. There's a lot of value to be able to come in. And when I started at Dirty Lemon, my experience at Louboutin was so imperative because I walked in and I could see the things that worked well at Louboutin that I could apply to Dirty Lemon, and I saw the things that didn't work well at Louboutin that I could still apply what I learned to do things differently for Dirty Lemon. And that I'm so thankful for, because I could come in and say, we did this in a corporate setting. I think it had this benefits, but I think that this could have been done better, and we could actually do it better because everyone is in that mentality of let's try things and learn as we go and adapt accordingly.
My favorite question, and I think one thing that's super pertinent to today's society, is what's your impact on the world, Merel? What are you doing for the people? And what is something that is of interest to you that you really are loving right now?
Oh, my impact on the world. That's a very heavy question, but I think for me, impact is all about how can I help the people I interact with to help them heal, gain confidence, and be the best versions of themselves. So that's what I really strive to do every day with the people I interact with. And I think on a larger scale, my goals with impact is how can I create something using my natural skills of creativity and communication to build something that outlives me and can extend that impact further than, my immediate circle.
Love that. Great answer. Great answer. It's like you were prepared for this. I got so excited, I forgot about my question of music, Merel. What are you listening to? Are you influenced by some of the stuff I listen to? Just kidding, but what are you listening to?
I mean, you know this, and most people that know me know this. I love moody music. I'm a Pisces. I'm always in my feelings. So I definitely listen to music that reflects that. I think right now, I also make my own playlists, and they are always a mix of really, really old stuff, some new things. So I'm not really as affected by, what's the latest, but my rotation right now has been a lot of Snow Allegra, Emotional Oranges, Frank Ocean. Smino is popping up a lot on this playlist. Yeah.
We always talk about music on here. So what's in your playlist? What are you listening to recently? What's been sticking out to you?
I'm a big Drake fan. We actually have the same birthday. So one of my songs I'm really listening to right now is his new single, Grease. I just love it. It just gives me a summery vibe, makes me want to take a vacation. Like, I love it. He actually just dropped another song with Chicago rapper Lil Durk too. But yeah, Grease is my jam. I love that song.
So what's so crazy about that song is what we did, I think it was like the third episode of the podcast, we started talking about, I was talking about music and I was talking about Drake. And I didn't even know that was Drake singing on Grease. I thought that was Khalid. And that, so if you go on episode 3, you'll hear that I'm like, or episode what? Yeah, episode 3, you'll hear us talking about, oh, I thought that was Khalid. And everyone was like, nah, that's Drake. I was like, dang, I messed up. So I want to thank Merel for being on our podcast and being an amazing guest. What we like to do at Dim Events is give a round of applause, a virtual round of applause to all of the people on. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me. This was great.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Merel, where can people keep updated on what you're doing? Do we have social media? You're doing a lot of cool things, and we definitely want to tune in.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm just Merel Petri, MERELPETRI. Always feel free to reach out over LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm taking an Instagram break right now, but I'll be back and active soon.
Thank you. And that is episode 12 of Have a Map. We took directions today from Merel, and we are out on a Saturday. For all of you listening in the morning, in the afternoon, at nighttime, hope you found this podcast very helpful for your life journey. And always make sure to reach out to Merel, reach out to Jordan as well. Jordan is a thriving rising senior at her university, and she's going to be pushing forward and doing big things as well. Feel free to follow Dim Event and check us out. All right, peace.